Thank you for being here. Amazing view. So what an incredible place. And if you are staying for Deepak, I think it's going to be phenomenal. So welcome to Culture as Catalyst. I have four, I forgot. Luis is not yet here. Three. He might get here at some point. Three incredible panelists here today. So first of all, Leila Fataar, the founder and CEO of Platform 13, an incredible organisation.
Thank you, Laura.
That's okay. Secondly, Micky Ogando, who's the founder and chief creative officer at Bakery. And thirdly, Chris Garbutt, who's the chief creative officer at Vice Media and president of Virtue. And we've all had a lovely kind of catch up while we've been waiting here. But first of all, Chris, would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here, and thanks for making the trip and the effort to get here. So I'm originally South African. I'm a creative career person at heart. So, I started in graphic design and worked my way up to become a creative CCO of Ogilvy, and then I was global chief creative officer of Chai Day for a long time. Then I launched my own startup, and then I got acquired by Vice. And I've been at Vice and Virtue for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's been amazing because we've done a huge transformation in the company and refocused it really on 2 areas, entertainment and marketing. We're never going to win the sort of digital platform game. So we've given up on that idea. But we're really excited about our culture-first approach. And we've used that as a navigator for everything we do and all of the model we've been building around it. So I'm excited to share some of that today with you.
Thank you. And Leila?
I'm probably the oldest one on the panel. We'll have to check. Been around for a while, basically, is the point. Actually, speaking to Chris earlier, fellow South African, but also I was involved with the very early Vice. So it's quite nice to catch up about that. So done many things, had been brand side, been agency side. I've created a new type of business, Platform 13, which I'm working on now, but also just released my book, which came out last week, a week ago, called Culture-Led Brands. So I'm excited to be here chatting about it and just to share my 30-year experience across many different things. So yeah, excited to be here. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you.
Awesome.
And Micky?
Yeah, a little different to the other panelists and Chris. Similarly, I started Bakery when I was 27, actually, about 15 years ago in Austin, Texas. But I'm a Dominican Republic immigrant to the United States, somehow landed in Texas, of all places, and started my agency there eventually. But college dropout, got into design and stuff like that by tagging walls and getting in trouble with the law and that sort of thing. So been trying to correct my act since, with varying levels of success. But yeah, so good to be here in this amazing place with you guys.
Incredible.
Thank you. And it's amazing, actually, the 4 of us are all immigrants, actually. Yeah. And I think maybe there's something about understanding culture when you come from somewhere
else. A different place, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Even Luis, who's not here.
Also.
From Mexico. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm Laura Jordan Bambach. So I am founder and chief creative officer at Uncharted, which is an agency in London. We've got a very different model. So we kind of lean heavily into technology, but we really lean heavily into diversity as the key to really fantastic, kind of better creative work. So we've got a crew of about 70 people from all over the world, from 17 to 76 that we work with. And previous to that, I was president and chief creative officer at Grey at WPP in London. But I'm going to start with some questions. So. Cool. First one, I think there is a lot of conversation around culture in our industry and in our business. Ooh. So my first question is, what is culture to you? What does it mean to you personally? And then what does it mean for you in terms of the industry that we're in? Because I think everyone has a different opinion about what culture actually means. So Micky, I'm going to start with you.
I mean, depending on the day, I think it's something that you can answer in a very poetic way, or you can be very blunt about it. I think culture, in a sense, when we're talking about it with brands, it's sort of this return, if there ever was, honestly, a starting point, but it's this return to non-bullshit and being real with people. You know, it's an old saying now that this is kind of the information age. Honestly, at this point, this disinformation age, or whatever you want to call it, but everyone has almost too much information at this point. You're not educating the way that brands used to. You're trying to roll into the lifestyle of the folks that you're trying to convince that you're the better option for. And in order to do that, you really can't, you know, sort of thumb your nose up at them and automatically assume that you know better than they do about certain things. Or, honestly, be honest about the fact that you do know better than they do, right? Like, the reason why a Pharrell leads out LVMH right now and things like that is because, yeah, he's going to wear a weird cowboy hat with, you know, shorts and all this other stuff because he feels this is better, and other people tend, you know, some of those people tend to agree. So it's, I would say it's the cutting down of kind of the marketing horseshit, and for a lot of these brands to be human at a certain level where we all get it. Like, you guys make a thing, you want us to buy it, and you're being honest about it, but then you're also giving us a reason why, like, we all feel you're worthy of our attention and our dollars.
Yeah. Leila, I know you've got a lot of a lot of thinking on this.
I'm going to try to be really, really short here, obviously. So, when I was writing the book, actually, what was really interesting was the 30-year articulation of what I've always been doing. But, you know, when you start out, you're not really thinking like that, right? So I think, and I call this, and this is a new one for everyone, I'm calling it the culture stack, okay? And when thinking about not only my own life, but the brands I've worked on and the projects that have come out that have been consistently successful, there's a red thread. And that's because culture's about people, right? And always has been. Culture is the stuff of life. It reflects reality and it connects communities. And that is the baseline of everything that I've always thought, but never really could articulate. And the reason why that is because everyone has a culture stack, whether you're CEO, whether you're Pharrell, whether you're whatever, and you see the world through that stack. And that stack is made up of two things. One is what I call an inherited culture. Where you're from, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Where you're from, you know, how you grew up, the color of your eyes. These things are things that are inherited, but they are sort of the essence of who you are. We're from South Africa. We have views of coming and living and being from South Africa. And they are different views because I'm from apartheid South Africa as you were, but I'm not white. So that's my view of the world. And I think about access and discrimination, the things that I'm passionate about, but I couldn't quite articulate. It's always been about that for me. And then you layer on that, or you stack on top of that, your interest cultures. So I'm an old raver, right? Like, that was my thing. I was going to go club culture. I came to London in the 90s to go raving. That was what I was doing. No idea what I was going to do for work.
Is that why you came?
I came with no contacts, 200 pounds, no job, no career, no idea, right? I was here to go to the jungle nights with Goldie. That was my job, right? So I arrived in London and built my career from that. And so if I think about my 30-year career, but then I think about everyone I've ever met, and everyone looks at the world through their culture stacks. And that interest cultures could be multiple. Fashion, music, art, whatever, anything. But you see it through the lens of your interest culture. Do you understand what I mean? So for me, club culture, jungle specifically, was mixed. And I wanted to be there because it was mixed. Because of where I'm from. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the culture stack is in the book, buy the book. But it's very much how you and how we all see brands, whether you buy it, whether you work for it, whether you defend it, whether you advocate for it. That makes a culturally relevant brand. And that means that you have to be really intentional about how you define it, but also how you act it. And there's a big, big difference. It's just not a word that you should throw about easily, and it frustrates the fuck out of me, to be honest.
100%.
So anyway, I hope that was short enough.
No, that was great. Thank you.
I agree with that. I think for me, it's like the beautiful, colorful integrated tapestry of humanity.
Totally.
And
Totally.
and like it's based on customs, religion, beliefs, language, behaviors. And what's amazing as a marketer is if you can get on the forefront of where those shifts are happening, where the energy is shifting in culture, and where humanity is focusing their attention and their energy, and you understand what's of value to those communities, you can be of much more value as a brand.
And you have to add that value.
So
you
true.
can't just extract the value. You have to add value.
And it's so true. There's like this misconception of what culture means, especially in the States. Like if you call yourself a cultural agency, it suddenly becomes this thing about race. Or,
It's diversity.
and it's not, it's not that. I mean, it's
but it's not.
It's humankind. It's humankind, and it's understanding that as a marketer. And if you can figure out the culture economy, there's a lot of venture to be made in the culture economy, and a lot of money to be made with that reciprocity.
And that's the difference.
The reciprocity.
That's where it is. Where there's mutual benefit, perfect. Where there's extraction, it's a hard no.
So true.
And that's something we all have to protect because it's the stuff of life. It's the thing that we all love. It's what we see, what we eat, what influences us. But it also includes politics. It also includes technology. It includes the media. And we need to really be able to identify those signals that are right for the brand. And you can only do that if you understand really what your brand stands for.
So true.
I think value is the key word.
It's the key.
The key is value, and it's adding it, right?
Yeah.
So you said something really interesting, which is, about. I would say, it all adds up into one thing, which is people want to feel like they have their own shit. Like this is my shit. Like your shit was like jungle music and raves and all that. Like you're saying, this is my thing. And I have a small group of people, my tribe, where this is our thing. And that's it. And it's not your thing, and you're not part of it. And, see, a lot of people talk about like, oh, it's bringing together. Culture is not actually that, like in a really interesting way. It doesn't come from that. It comes from like, yes, there can be like welcoming part of a welcoming part about it, but different countries are different about a lot of things, and different like tribes within those countries are different about a lot, and they kind of demark their lines on those things. So for me, it's about these people deciding this is my thing, and then you figuring out a way how to feed into that.
Why you want to feed into, why is that the right culture for your brand to even be in the first place?
But also, and I think this is super interesting, is, and I was talking because I also do a pod. I mean, I just, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Anyway, I was speaking to my friend who did a really amazing festival, and actually he said an amazing thing. He was just like, it's all good in subculture where we're creating this thing, right? Actually, brands don't have a role there, and they shouldn't. Subculture is almost the 2 fingers up to the mainstream. That's the reaction that you get. They should start adding value at emerging stage. I call it the cultural pipeline, which is again in the book. And that emerging stage is super interesting because that's where you can add real value, right? But it has to be mutually benefit. But once it gets to mainstream and popular extraction, then actually we in the culture need to gatekeep the culture from the commerce side. So it's this interesting thing of commerce that is mutually beneficial is great, but if it starts to become extractive, then actually the people from the culture start gatekeeping, and that's when you start closing in, and it goes back to subculture. So it's this interesting feedback loop that happens. But you become the gatekeeper of. So now, when I work with brands, I'm absolutely sure that it's in service of that culture that I'm trying to be part of. That is my job, is to make sure that it's done with respect.
I kind of equate it to the old trading days when you would you meet somebody new and you'd give them something of value as a gift. That person would feel compelled to give you something of value back. It's humanity, right? So it's that give to get that's so important with marketing. If you understand what's of value to your community or culture, and you design your marketing experience around your product experience, your user experience. And that could be anything from entertainment to a tool, utility you give them. But if that's of value to that community and they actually appreciate that and use it, they'll be compelled to give you something of value back. And that reciprocity is modern marketing, I think.
100%. 100%.
That give to get.
In a way. And I thought, Leila, you said something really fantastic, actually, in terms of like everyone has a culture. It's not that some people have a culture and some people don't. And I think that's where a lot of the mistakes are being made as well. It's the recognition that every single individual, every group of people, right, they have their...
Connective communities.
Yeah, and they have their own culture.
South African can WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Literally that, basically.
God, I'm going to the Australian one
exactly.
tonight.
You're going to the Australian
Jesus Christ.
Joking, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, but I love that. When you're thinking about everyone having a culture, you're thinking of everyone having value. And I think for so long, there's been this kind of thought that this group of people have a value and this group of people don't.
No, sure.
Or that person doesn't have a value, that person isn't as important. And as we're kind of stepping into potentially people starting to use the wrong tools to start to identify these cultures, it's even more concerning because there is no value exchange.
Exactly. And I think there is a little bit around thinking about that also within a business. So remember, the CEO, those decision makers in the C-suite also have a culture stack, right? So their decisions are made through that lens. And sometimes you go, okay, your culture stack is you may have come from a privileged background, and so your inherited or interest culture may make decisions that don't really necessarily work for everyone else, as we can see sometimes. And so from the CEO to the CFO, everyone is looking through the world through their culture stack.
Yeah.
If once you see it, you go, oh shit, that's how it works. But so are your consumers. They're looking at your brand through that stack. They're looking at your brand. If you're not, if someone is, I guess that's, hello.
Hello, Luis.
Hey, Luis.
Come on in. You know, consumers are looking that way at your brand as well. So if you are passionate about whatever it is, and that brand is not addressing that, or whatever it might be that you like,
Yeah.
you look at it that way.
Yeah.
You look at
I
it.
was going to ask some questions about Tree Hut, but we're going to wait for Luis to get mic'd up, and then I'm going to chuck a question at him.
Yes.
So in the meantime, you know, a couple of years ago, there was a massive, there's been a massive conversation around the fact that, like, purpose adds value. It's not nice to have, but it's the thing that grows business. The same conversation's happening around culture now. So I would like to hear from you around sort of culture and growth and what growth opportunities does it give a brand? I mean, you see it all the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a new economy. There's been a shift in the economy from a market economy to a culture economy. And it's not just fluff there's a lot of venture and equity inside of the culture economy that if you're smart as a brand, you can unlock. But you have to find your valuable, visible role inside those pockets and those communities. And you have to almost think as a CMO more like a venture builder than a cost center these days. So like, you've got to start by actually understanding the forces at play in culture, what's of value to those communities, what those communities are engaged with, and then figure out how you can bring value to that, whether that's connecting people, whether that's arming them with the right tools to actually achieve what they want to do in a more like effective way, whether that's scaling their existing ideas. I mean, those communities are already supplying their own demand. They don't need brands anymore. They're creating their own commerce in a way. So there's a whole economy out there that's changed. And as marketers, I don't think that like 90% of the US marketing community actually understands the new culture economy that well. That's why at Vice and Virtue, we've been building an operating system which is culture first. We've got a consultancy offering called Pigeon. That's our emblem. It's a weird name, but we've been building the right tools to actually understand what's of value in culture. We can actually measure a brand's cultural capital in certain areas, and 9 times out of 10, that brand doesn't even know that they've got equity in those pockets and communities and culture. We consulted with Chanel the other day, and we said, you guys are blowing up huge in K-pop and anime in APAC. Did you know that? And they didn't know. And that leads to really interesting opportunity mapping of those brands and clients, because all of a sudden you can go, well, what commerce can you open up? What ventures can you launch in those communities? And how can you not only intuitively feel culture and where you should play, but like actually measure it in a way that's of equity to you and effectiveness to you too? And last thing I'll say is, as a CMO, you're surrounded by so many options these days. There's so many things you could do, but the question is, what should you do?
And what should you do and what can you do?
Yeah, what's the shortest path to like driving effectiveness for your brand and growth? So once you understand where you can play inside of culture and what communities are of value to you, and authentically how you can play with those communities in a way that doesn't feel bolted on, then you can start mapping the network effects of all of those different communities. And you can figure out what community is influential over the next one, over the next one. And then you can choose the quickest, most effective path to driving growth.
Yeah. So we're going to get back into growth and actually how you get there, which I think is really useful. But first of all, I wanted to introduce Luis Garcia.
Hi, everybody.
So he's the CMO at Naterra International, cult brand, Tree Hut. And I would love to hear actually from the two of you. I actually had a question for you, Luis, if you're happy to answer, which is how did this relationship kind of start, and how did you develop it into such a cult brand?
Yeah, I think, well, thanks. First, thank you for waiting for me a little bit. I had some mess up with the address and stuff, but everything's good now. Talking about how we became that cult brand is we didn't really chase culture, which is important, the trends. We didn't want to chase the trends. It's not about trend chasing. It's about being authentic to listening to your audience, right? So once you listen to your audience, you move away from marketing tactics and you go more towards the emotion that drives that. That's when you see the magic switch, right? It's hard to mention this because it was not by creating advertising that we grew, which is talking to a lot of advertisers here. It's a little difficult. It's more focusing really on your community. And I think by focusing on that community and understanding, working hard to get it, that's how you are able to then bring something a cult following, right? It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And we have a video that
should we play that?
sort of talks a little bit about, or shows that community, which I think is honestly the core of the brand.
Brilliant.
You want to play it.
Come with me to try Tree Hut, the viral sugar scrub.
Love Tree Hut and Tree Hut scrub.
Addiction is real, honey. I can't do it. When the new Tree Hut scrub comes out, I got to go. I got to go smell it.
Yes! Oh my God, I'm literally having the best day ever.
This is the key to smelling good.
Yes.
Ooh, it smells super clean and super fruity.
Ooh, yeah. I like that one.
Literally smells so girly.
Ooh, it's sparkly.
Spectacular. Give me 14 of them right now.
Really? Like, I'm literally about to go take a shower right now.
Amazing.
So one of the things that's interesting to me is, you look at before Luis became CMO at Tree Hut and we became the agency of record, Bakery did, the brand was already skyrocketing, right? It's almost a brand that, like you were asking, how do you do this? Honestly, neither one of us did it. Like, this brand was what we were talking about. People decide what their thing is. And a whole lot of people on TikTok decided this is their thing. This sort of like small family-owned business, which is really cool. And I think that played into it for sure. That they were like this. Honestly, like, and we're working on a few things right now that are going to be kind of loud to end the year and start the next. But for sure, like taking risks now because anything you do to change something that's a cult product is extremely high risk, right? It's like the most high risk you could ever take because you risk betraying that cult audience. But they were the ones that created this, and now it's our job to sort of shepherd it and take it into what does growth now look like for us once we already have the domination of certain like channels. Like you saw, for example, Tree Hut, again, small brand compared to something like Dove Care, but TikTok, we have 2.1 million followers. Dove has less than 500,000. And these are brands that are like, they're just literally trying to poach talent away from places like Tree Hut or whatever and ask, like, how do we do this? And it's like Leila was saying, is like, there is a level of not understanding that like part of our job is knowing we didn't do it. And I think part of our job is understanding that our responsibility to that audience is to not talk down to them and not like be like, and now let me show you how we do things, you know, thanks for taking it, guys, up to this point, but the marketers got it. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't think that's the way forward. And you really have to create a platform. I mean, you guys honestly have left me very little to say here. You've said very, very smart things today. But you create a platform and then you really almost like cast your audience in it. You're just like, hey guys, what do you guys want to do now? What do you guys want to do today with us? And let's go and you know and get. So anyway, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the, you know.
So how do you do that? Because it is, I mean, you can feel, like you can with any brands that have culture at the center, you can feel the audience, you can feel the excitement, you can feel that feeling of like, you see me, you've got me, right? Yeah. So how do you honor that audience and bring them in terms of kind of future development?
Yeah, so there's 2 points that I want to mention. One, very important, you got to listen. You have to listen of what your community is saying. Right? And they're not your consumers. You need to refer them now. It's your community, right? So that's the first switch. So you gotta listen to what they're saying. The second point is also very important to be humble, because as Micky was saying, now we have a strong agency. Now we have marketing expertise, and you cannot just go in and take it. It's just, that's something that it lives on your own. It's like how you maintain it and how you grow it, how you keep it authentic. That's even more difficult to just, I say so and let's do this strategy because I learned this in school in my experience, right? Like it's just not the way that things work right now. And there's frameworks and processes, and I come from big school marketing to now something more nimble and fast, which I'm loving, and that's the reason why I'm here. All those, I went to Germany, I went to France, to trainings, and then you drink from the Kool-Aid, and it's very good in your formative years, but then after that, you're gonna kind of put it aside and then move to this new world. And I think that's the challenge with the industry overall, the big brands are having.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is like one of my favorite things of like, we're lucky enough as an independent agency, you know, no networks, which is, I hope, we can, you know, stay that way. And meaning we get to kind of pick and choose. And we've been lucky enough to have a decent amount of success where we can pick and choose the clients that we work with. And by clients, I do mean clients, not brands necessarily. So the people we get to go work with is super important to me. One of the best things I saw when, again, this is a brand, and we were the agents. Our kind of claim to fame back in the day was being the agency for LaCroix when LaCroix sort of like also went to cult status. So bakery's become kind of this agency where like people are like, oh, you know how to do this. We're like, well, no, but but sure, like if you guys want to say we do, we're let's say we've gotten used to being around this, but I don't know if we know how to do it. But the interesting thing is when Luis joined in, and like pretty much at the same time we come in, this is a company that went from a very small organization to overnight success and exploded, right? And continues to do so. And so all these new pieces are being added, and it's like growing at an insane breakneck pace. And now new agency of record, new media agency of record, new PR agency of record, new all this stuff. And then for the first time ever, this January, we have yearly planning, first annual planning meeting for this company, all hands, all agencies, everybody. We rent out a hotel like ballroom, for the table's the biggest table I've ever seen, just everyone's in that room. And the first thing that Luis does, he still doesn't know his team, you understand? But the first thing he did was just okay, he's asking questions and he pinpoints who runs this TikTok? Who runs this thing that's basically the vehicle to what we've done? And it's end of the table, the last person, just in a t-shirt, just whatever. We have this young lady, and it's just it's her. And we had a 3-day meeting, right, that week, and so that was first day. Second day, I'm just noticing like everyone's like hugging her and all this other stuff, and I ask, and it's just like, oh, we went to dinner last night. She just got promoted, you know, and like immediately I'm like, this is who I value, and like, hey, you got to move many more seats this way, you know. And that's, I think, shows you also like how you need to lead a company like this. It's not about like, well, I brought the Harvard MBA in, and like I brought this person from Nike and this person from Diageo and this person from wherever. Like, no, like this thing didn't come from there, man. Like this came from somewhere else. Go there. You as a brand, go there for your staffing, for your team, for all of that. You got to build it from that place. And that's what we use authenticity all the time, but that's what actual tactical authenticity looks like. It's like actually go to the damn place and hire the damn people.
I think that's interesting what you're saying. Like it reminds me of when I was working on Apple years ago. And it is a big iconic brand, but like there was a huge learning when we were working on iPhone because everybody is sending in their content and their photos, and we were storing them in hard drives and cupboards and drawers, and we didn't know what to do. And then the digital explosion happened and Instagram happened, and we said, let's migrate the audience to Instagram and let's shift our position as a brand and understand that our role is to actually celebrate our users and give them the real estate of the brand to be their platform. So Shot on iPhone was born, and we built a million kind of users, and then it sort of dictated the roadmap of the brand, like from the store experience where you'd actually use that as a training ground to arm people the right tools to be creative, all the way through to actually connecting communities around shared passions, and we could even give them trigger briefs around certain times of the year to go and create for the brand, and that was hugely effective for the brand in a way. The ROI, like we'd get a user-generated piece of content around the solar eclipse. That would be like 20 times more engaged than like a multi-million-dollar production we'd make. So understanding that the brand's role is to give the community a platform to express themselves, to scale their own ideas, to create their own commerce on. As long as it's a mutual beneficial partnership or relationship that you're building, I think that's the new age way of marketing.
So I'm actually from the other side. So this was, for me, super interesting to be able to go and work inside a brand. Because I come from those communities, be it creative, be it whatever it is. That is my community, and my first company spin of 10 years worked with those communities. I'm from that community. So when I was headhunted by Adidas.
What does that feel like?
It was mad. I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, so it's that brand, and I've got this incredible opportunity, but they wanted the work that I did at Spin. That's what they headhunted me for, right? So, but then I had to change everything inside.
I was going to say, did they give you the space to change it? Because I think what I'm hearing here...
You need the inside person to be able to do that because it doesn't work otherwise, right? So I was like, well, I'm not going to use any of your agencies. Sorry, I know they procured, but I've got a better network, and and why am I here? Like, if you don't want, you wanted me to be here. So that was the first thing I did, was like not using any of your agencies. I'm going to create a whole new system where we can work with my network and do the things, almost do early in-housing, whatever you want to call it. So it was me and my graphic designers and friends and family that I'd always worked with that re-released Stan Smith globally. And that was huge for the company, and it was a side project for them. It wasn't the brand campaign. It was a but I knew, coming from sneaker culture, that actually this was the one that could do it for them, At the time, they were really sort of like up against the big guys and the competitors. It was the Olympic year, so it was a really amazing opportunity to be able to do that. And then actually, my boss, he was like, your job is to make Adidas Originals the sportswear brand of the street. That was my remit. So then I could go, okay, I'm going to do collaboration with this, with Palace, all the way through. And it was really fun to do. But it's because I had that internally. But it's because there was like, if you want me to do the work that I can't do it with this setup. It doesn't work. The same with Diageo then. So when I was headhunted by Diageo to create their first culture and entertainment department, actually my boss then, who actually wrote the foreword for my book, which is really special for me, because he's that corporate guy. But he was a visionary, He was like, disrupt the industry, disrupt my business, disrupt the category, go. I'm like, cool. Even though I don't know anything about the booze business, you know, because it's so regulated, and that was a really big learning curve.
Yeah.
But back to your point, and I'll give you an example of how that really worked for me, very similar to yours. So Guinness was one of our brands. I mean, it's Guinness, right? But I also knew that Guinness is a huge part of Caribbean and African culture because it's been exported there since the 1820s.
Yeah.
As much of that culture as is Irish culture, where it's from. And of course, around 2020, we were asked to do a cultural strategy for Guinness because there was a bit of a struggle with all the pubs closing, which is where they, you know, that's their occasion. And of course, 2020, and I was like, I'd already, when I was at Diageo, done huge partnerships with Notting Hill Carnival, which was really well received because obviously Guinness just makes sense there. And in England and everywhere in the world, everyone wants to be Jamaican, right? They're pretty cool. So I'm like, Guinness, they love you. You have equity in this culture that you don't engage with and don't talk to. If that's not a business growth driver, I don't know what is.
Yep.
So outside of that stuff that I did when I was in-house, when I came out with Platform 13 and during Carnival, I was like, we're going to highlight this culture during Notting Hill Carnival, which is a huge carnival, biggest, my favorite place. It's our Christmas, basically, we call it. So, and I did a partnership with Original Flavour with these two young Caribbean brothers born in England. And because Guinness were really like, we want to be in food culture, blah, blah, blah. But they had learnt their recipes from their grandmother, who was from Jamaica. So we did a huge citywide campaign of her. And she was on the poster. It was her story and a huge, like, slogan going, my husband love him Guinness Punch, around Carnival. In her area, everywhere. The amount of comments, tweets, everything, all the Jamaican or West or anyone from the culture who was born there, big stars, reshared. Of course, because you're like, and actually one of the main comments that came through was like, they see us.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a historical moment for Guinness. A historical moment for Guinness. She has now passed away, but she came out on a walking stick, looking at the posters, taking photos with us. You know, that for me is culture.
Yeah.
That for me is how a brand activates. And of course, we did more things with that, and hopefully they should continue with that, and I think they are. But for me, that's where the depth comes in, because I can do hype all day, but you need to do hype and depth.
Yeah. So I think we've heard some things that are so central and so important, right? I think that real authenticity, the fact that you have to have, it is about a client, not about a brand. And if you have a fantastic client who, you know, is humble and actually acts with that authenticity and actually cares about culture, that is where you get the great work from. And that, you know, really understanding culture and a culture stack allows you to see those opportunities and see around corners and see people. But I would also love to ask, because, you know, Vice and Virtue, it has been central to culture. It has been leading culture for such a long time, ever since it was a scrappy little thing a very long time ago. So what it is now, which is this entertainment kind of empire. But how do you, as a company, how are you able to kind of find culture, spot culture, move culture?
So, I mean, I think it's easier for us because we were born on that side of the paywall. So you get your traditional holding companies, and the model of marketing has always been to build these monuments and broadcast them at audiences and hope to, like, buy attention. And unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. So we, from the inception of Vice, have been really good at, like, partnering with talent upstream and breaking new talent before others do. And ASAP Rocky, I mean, we live streamed them from the office before anybody even knew. So like, it's intuitively natural. And because of that, we've built a culture of foresight planners who are immersed in culture and involved with talent. We've got production companies that have got great storytellers already, so we can bring them in earlier. So it's quite obvious to build an operating system around, and that's what we've done. And out of that, we can almost, I mean, it sounds arrogant. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but we do talk about being a predictive engine of culture. So being able to almost predict where culture is going to blow up next, where the energy is going to shift. We're fascinated with those sort of inflection points in behavior and customs and language and values. And you know, our job is to give our brands the unfair advantage of embedding themselves earlier than others in those spaces and partnering with those communities and that talent earlier. Out of that operating system, we can actually start to inform our content production. So with our operating system, we can say, these are the themes that are interesting. Right now, we've done a huge study around new traditionalism in the States and globally. I mean, it's frightening what's happening, but there's a huge shift in culture right now to traditional values. This generation is going to be more traditional and conservative than the previous generation. We've got youth culture, starting communities around traditional wives and hustle bros and homesteaders, and there's YouTube religious converts, like building communities out there. So it's important as a brand to understand those forces at play in those shifts and design everything around that. And if you can even push upstream into product innovation around those spaces, even better. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to sell people something they don't want or don't value, forget about it. They've got a choice now. You can't buy that attention anymore.
And that's kind of what literally, not even plugging the book, but it is a little bit around the era of culture-led brands, I call it, right? And because it is about reading those signals. It is about adapting to that way. It is about changing a narrative. If we can see, especially if you have the weight to be able to do that, you can do that as a brand. You can go, actually, we're okay with this, we're not okay with this. You can change a narrative at scale. You can break a stereotype. You can build things. And I feel like that, for me, is also the responsibility in this new era of culture-led brands. It's not only to just go, oh, that's what's happening, so let's extract and make some more money from it. Maybe your job is to actually go, you know what, let's hold up there a second. We've got the ear of the masses. We've got the weight. We've got these really, really amazing sort of partnerships with organizations that can change things, and we can do that.
I love that.
And we should do that. You know, and so we did that with Smirnoff very early on. They are, that festival vodka drink, right? So when you go to a festival, you ask for vodka and Coke, it's Smirnoff. So this is my Diageo days. And we were just like, okay, that's cool, but there's actually only 17% of female, non-binary and black women DJs in the festivals around the world, headliners. As Smirnoff, how do we make that difference? So we created the 2 Times Women's Headliners initiative. And we worked with our partners. I was like, let's work with Live Nation. Let's work with Spotify. Let's work with the people who are actually the ones who can make the difference first. And then let's go out and build, a 3-year place to be able to build new talent to go into these places, but not tokenistic. So this is really important. It's so nuanced and detailed, and there's got to be a lot of care that goes into these things. The care is important. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I can tell you a story from my own creative experience, actually, that wraps it up really well, which is when I was doing a lot of work for Bacardi, so I was their global experience and engagement agency. They threw a massive fuck-off party in the Bermuda Triangle. And they invited, I can't remember, basically 2,000 people, 2,000 influencers.
Did they all disappear?
A load of people from the exactly. It was at Halloween.
How to get rid of
It was a lot of money spent on it. They had Calvin Harris, whatever. Kendrick Lamar was playing, Ellie Goulding was playing, right? 2,000 people. It's an amazing place. Vice had its own plane of cool people. Now, as their engagement agency, obviously, you've got to do all of the, the social stuff and blah, blah, blah. But we sat down with the client and said, look, you have to be honest with who your audience is.
You have to be.
The audience that drinks Bacardi, they are 20 middle American guys, right? That is where, those are your people, right? Giving them another party that they're never going to be cool enough to go to
is tough.
Is just not the right thing. So let's do something else instead. So we worked with a guy called Marcus Haney. He's a videographer and famous for breaking into festivals and doing it in costume, whatever. And we gave him some money, and he went with his mates, and he tried to break in. The Puerto Rican army was guarding the island. He did it in an amazing way, and we got a 24-minute, MTV, ready for MTV film out of it, which just resonated with the audience so much, because they're, again, going you see me. You see that I'm this kid, you know, with a couple of mates who are never going to be able to go.
It's so interesting you say that because sometimes also, and I call them latent audiences. I think you mentioned it, so Birkenstock, one of our clients, and they were like, oh, you know, we're only really famous in Middle America, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's the Ohio housewife, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but they came to us actually to introduce themselves into sneaker culture. I'm like, you don't need to introduce yourself. You're a huge part of sneaker culture already. And so for us, it wasn't even, it's almost like you've got to be able to say to them, although that's what you think it is, sometimes it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, you've got to be honest as a brand.
You've got to be honest. And, you know, one thing I think, hopefully, I don't know if it's South African, but you're going to get the truth from me.
Yeah, that is.
You're going to get the truth from me, but it's in service of doing it better. Because I'm a brand guardian at the end of the day. So I think for me, it's really important to be able to have that really transparent relationship with your CMO, to be able to go, you know what? This is the truth of the matter. Same with when I went to Adidas. It was really hard to hold a sheet of paper up to the then general manager and go, I know you think you're successful because you sell a lot of shoes, but you are not relevant in sneaker culture.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
And so this kind of like reach and relevance is something I talk about a lot. And you get actually a lot more reach if you're relevant than if you try and buy that reach.
Yeah.
So
And that's the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
So, but that's hard to do, eh? That's
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah. We are almost
Sorry,
at
we're
time.
out of time.
That's okay. We're almost at time. I just wanted to leave actually with sort of a quick thing from all of you. We've sort of talked about what culture is, but if you could give our audience like a tip if they're a little bit kind of nervous about stepping into this area, or what's I guess your best tip for doing culture-led marketing?
I think for culture-led marketing, as I mentioned, listen. There's a lot of technology, and then I haven't heard the word AI, which is great, but let's bring it in. There's a lot of technology with AI to actually listen to your community, better tools to do what we want to do better, right? So listen to your community and build teams. I think Micky touched on a little bit about this, that are diverse and they understand culture. Not diverse demographically only, but also different walks of life, and have that as your department of culture. That doesn't exist very much in many companies. We're building something like that, but that's the way that you get ingrained and then work that relationship.
I love that, having a department of culture.
I would say if you're looking to just step into it, the first thing is, and I'll say I own bakery, but I also own a media agency, so not a great plug for that. But I would say forget about culture is not a media buy, right? So before you ever get into that, Fernando Machado, smart guy who's probably roaming around the cross edits down there, says he calls going to media first is like that's paying the dull tax, right? If you're already dull, if you're already just like checking the boxes and whatever, then you're thinking about how much you got to pay to do that and to reach as many homes as you need to. And that's the wrong way to look at it. Think about, how do I imagine if you have, let's say even if you're a massive brand, you have this much media buy, right? Like, okay, before I even touch it, like treat it as a war chest. It's back there. I'll use it when I need it. Immediately, what do I have to do now to get attention without touching that? I think it's the easiest little trick for you to get yourself in the right mindset of saying, well, shit, if I can't pay my way in, then I have to be interesting. And it's and it's almost like, even if you're not an interesting person, you know what I mean? Even if you're just and we've all worked for those people, those CMOs, not Luis, he's interesting. And and he's very used to already, like you were saying, unfortunately hearing too much truth from me. So he might just, sometimes be like, all right, enough truth, shut the fuck up, but definitely getting through that initial block of we got to put our seasonal campaign out, fill this box, this is my media budget, ship. You turn it into a weird assembly line of nothing, of just empty noise that no one gives a shit about.
Which is going to be 30 times more in the next 3 years.
Exactly right. And so the moment that you put that media buy aside and you look at it as, whatever I'm going to do right now, I'm not going to spend on it. Let's start there. You know, brief that way. And then once you get there, like, if you can add to an already interesting idea, you're going to be in the right space at the very least to trick yourself into being at the very least more interesting, which tends to, by the way, lead you into culture-based marketing, because that's where the interesting stuff is. Like, the people creating cool shit, they're not white people in middle America, like, not always, not honestly, almost none of the time, right? So it leads you into those pockets of interesting tribes.
I think it makes you, as a brand marketer, also ask the questions like, if I'm doing this into culture, for whom and why, and why should they care? And if you can't answer all of those questions, you need to do some more work. Leila.
I think for me, and this is something that I've seen again over and over again, for me, that for big brands, and I'm talking about big brands here, internally, there needs to be a shift in mindset, behavior, and operations to be able to do culture-led work. Because trying to do it while using a very traditional org setup is really impossible. It's not seen as successful because it doesn't have the traditional reach. So there's a metrics and measurement. There's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen not only inside big businesses, but in the industry for actually real culture-led work. Or you need someone like me who's a big mouth, basically, internally, which is hard to do for both of us. But it's hard to do it if you are doing a really good job as a traditional marketer.
That's great.
Don't do such a good job as a marketer.
And Chris, finally, we've got to...
Before you jump in there, you said probably one of the most important things of the day right now, which was...
That's cool.
Well,
wow.
No, like hidden in what you were saying was the thing of time. Like, the metrics thing is obscene. You understand? Like, I need metrics after everything is obscene. You don't build things like that quickly. You definitely don't build authentic following, authentic, like, you know, like love for your brand, like overnight. It doesn't happen that way. And unless you can change organizationally how we look at those things and say, hey, unless your boss, if you're a CMO or whoever, your board can start to come back and say, in 5 years, I want this, you know? Awesome, let's get to fucking work. Not in 5 days. You know, that's not how that works. And culture, you can't shift it that way. So I just wanted to, because that was really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Micky. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, all like really smart stuff. I mean, I would just give you a metaphor. Like, I think about culture like a torrential rapid that keeps like moving.
Ever moving.
You can stand as a market on the side and throw stones and watch them disappear into the turbulence, or you can have the courage to jump in and just try, because you'll realize very quickly that there is huge ROI in being immersed in culture as a brand and actually using that existing energy and power to your advantage. I'll give you one quick example, and it's a very quick tactical example from last year. We had 4 weeks before Christmas. We've got a toy brand called MGA that sells Bratz dolls and LOL Surprise and little tykes. And they said, we need a modern day Christmas calendar. What can you do? And we went in and we mined for like a real tension, and we found very quickly that it was going to be the year where gift cards were going to be given more than actual toys to kids. That's terrible, right?
That's awful.
Like, it's kind of a lazy present to give a kid a gift card. And then we said, well, also, like, what are some other kind of cultural forces at play? And 2024 was the year of the diss track. Everybody was dissing everybody, and the diss track was blowing up. And we said, well, okay, you got gift cards, you got the diss track. Who's the person to deliver this message, this diss track, to kids? And it was the Rizzler. And you combine those three forces at play in culture, and you come up with an idea very quickly, creatively, around creating a diss track against gift cards for Christmas called Dismiss. And you make it shoppable. So pretty straightforward, and all of a sudden you got the Rizzler rapping.
That was really cool, by the way.
Thank you. And I mean, it's not the best thing we've ever done, but like, it works a storm. I mean, we turned it around in 3 weeks. It sold out all of their toys off the shelf in Walmart within a week. I mean, we had the founder and CEO of MGA on Fox, like singing the diss track. I mean, he was so happy. They reshifted their whole marketing model based on that one example.
Yeah.
And now we've got like a cultural roadmap of 12 of those a year.
Right.
And it works. I mean, that drove more sales than anything they'd done in terms of traditional media buying and brand marketing.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
So just jump in.
Yeah, jump in. And on that note, I'd love to thank the panel. Thank you so much.
That was great.
And thank you, audience, for coming out here as well. Yeah, thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.